To invite our next speaker, I would like to start on a personal note. 12 years ago, when I started my journey with food technology in the same college and Center for Biotechnology, the entire department would rave about how it is a blessing to be a student of food technology and to be taught and guided by this one professor who was sheer elegance and grace. There I met my inspiration. Professor Madam, today a lot of us are doing our PhDs and are wanting to be professors just because of you, because of the brilliance, the humbleness, the respectfulness that you've carried all through these years. It's truly inspired us. And today, Dr. Usha Antony, it is certainly mine and all your students' pleasure to invite you and to introduce you to our participants. I would just like to give a formal introduction of ma'am. Dr. Usha Antony is currently the Dean of College of Fish and Nutrition for Technology at Tamil Nadu Dr. J. Jayalalitha Fisheries University. She brings with her over 4 decades of academic research and administrative experience in this field of food science, nutrition, and biotechnology. I wouldn't be taking much of your time, ma'am.
It's indeed a great honor and privilege to be here as a speaker at the first conference which is being organized by CTTM under the leadership of Dr. Nandini Devi. And of course, coming back to the campus in which I spent almost 15 years. So my thanks to the organizers and the department for having me over here. Madam very elegantly spoke about Ayurveda and Ayurveda foods and how there is a great opportunity for everybody concerned, for all stakeholders, in order to leverage this great potential which has been part of our culture, tradition for so many thousands of years, and which has been fine-tuned through the practice of the physicians and the practitioners, including grandmothers, mothers, because I myself come from a background where my grandmother was a great inspiration. She would recommend so many home remedies which worked like magic, and which I keep recommending to all my friends, colleagues. So this great potential, if we want to exploit and bring it to the market, make it popular, then food product development is one of the fundamental steps. It's a very small domain of food technology, but it's such an important domain. So today I'll just give an overview of this. You find that this is just the outline. Now, if we look at what is food product development, because unless we produce products which are acceptable by the consumers, we must not forget that all of us, as ma'am mentioned, we are part of the environment. We often forget, we think we are apart from the environment. We are part of the environment. And many times we think genes are very static. Never. All of us who have done the science know that genes are highly dynamic, and that's what ma'am spoke about. So food product development should also be a dynamic process. And what is food product development? It's the development and introduction of a product which has not been previously manufactured by a company and brought to the marketplace. So here the Ayurveda foods have ample scope, because as ma'am mentioned, very few such products are available. In the south, some products are available. In Tamil Nadu also and Kerala, I'm sure all of you know there's something called, we have so many varieties of rice in the south, and we have special type of gruel made. And in Kerala, there's something called Aushadha Kanni, which is made during the rainy season, during the Varsha period. That is when the rains are there and the monsoon is there. And now that has been brought into a packet and people are using it. So development is possible with the traditional recipes. The next is presentation of an old product into a new market which is not explored. Here also we have a lot of scope for the Ayurveda foods. Now there are many definitions. No single definition will fit what we call new product development. It can be new packaging of an old product, an old established product brought into a niche market, a new packaging of the old product, and never before seen product. Like, I don't know how many of you remember, it's not no longer available in the market about the packaging. Horlicks used to come in a regular bottle. Horlicks is one of the most popular drinks all over India. And they brought one for small children in the shape of an elephant. which was very popular among kids. I mean, just the appeal of it was so good. So new type of packaging is always a welcome thing to appeal to the consumer so that they are drawn to it, and at least they will try it once. Then after that, if your product is good, they are going to come back for it. So that is the approach we want to use. These are the typical classifications we talk about, or characteristics of any new product. They can be called line extensions, or they can be repositioning of the existing products, new form of the existing products, reformulation, new packaging, which I mentioned earlier. But the most important ones are the innovative products and the creative products. For this, there's a lot of scope, especially in India, where we have so much of diversity in terms of the resources, food materials, as well as diversity in the way those materials are used across the cultures, across the ethnic groups. So there is a lot of scope for that, for creativity and innovation. So if we look at the new food product development in the food sector, or even in the Ayurvedic food sector, it is both a central and continuous activity for any company which is established, whether it's a startup or it's been existing for a long time. And as in any activity, when there is a concerted activity of all people together who are the stakeholders, or at least who are the key people, then the synergy which develops from such a combined activity or cooperative activity is very good. It involves the top management in all departments like the research and development, production, marketing, and finance, and as well as the teams and individuals involved in the day-to-day management and development of the product. So you have many teams when we want to think of having a new food product which we want to bring to the market. And if typically those people who are food technologists will know that, and if you worked for it, you'll know that it almost takes about 1.5 to 2 years to bring a product to the market if you want to have a completely new and innovative product. It's not easy. And because when we look at the failure rates, they are very high. So in order to have a sustainable product which will stick in the market, which will stay in the market, allow you to get a profit after some time, it's not an easy thing. Then you have the scale. The scale at which you want to do these activities can be domestic. As we know now, cloud kitchens are very popular. Then you have the bench scale in the laboratory. That's what we do in any research or college, in a university. This is what we do at the bench scale. We do things. Then it goes to the next scale, into the medium scale or pilot scale, and then into the large scale. So we begin in a small fashion. You may have a small idea based on some experience you had, or based on some anecdote you read, or some recipe book, some foundation based on which you innovate an existing product or bring a new product completely. Now there is a great need and demand. Okay, need and demand is there from both perspectives, because the product life cycle is limited. It doesn't go on and on. Very few products cross over 25 to 30 years and stay in the market. If we do an analysis, we'll find that's what it is. And for corporate reasons, people want new product. They want to have new, they want to diversify. So they will go into that. Marketplace reasons are there, technological reasons are there, and government influence. Ma'am just mentioned many things. We spoke about the eat right. Now we want to have low fat, low salt, low sugar. So that the government is trying to do that. Why? Because that is science based. We know that many of the problems which people are facing in the community is because of the high consumption of such products. So we want those. So we can use the technology developments to our advantage to create products which are useful to us. The industry perspective. We look from the point of view of the industry or the company which is trying to do this product development. It is usually in response to consumer trends and consumer needs and wants. New regulations. For example, all of you know about the trans fat, right? Trans fat we know is very harmful for us. So I think 2-3 years ago, the FSSAI came out with the instruction. Now trans fat is slowly, we're almost bringing it to zero. Less than 1% it is supposed to be. So a 2-year period was given to sort of wean away from the use of trans fats in many of our bakery products. So many products in which we are traditional sweets. It was used as a replacement. Vanaspati was used as a replacement for ghee, the trans fat, or the saturated fat derived from the oil. And so these new regulations will help us to develop new products. Particular markets such as economy markets or luxury markets. Rural market is a very, very big market which is untapped in India. So there is a great scope for that. Competition with companies to increase the profits. You want to produce an own brand, your own brand which is similar to somebody else's brand which is popular. You want to replace some products which have gone through their entire life cycle. In product development, there's something called life cycle. Because of lack of time, I'm not covering all that. You can read up. A lot of material is available in the internet. Both books as well as papers are available, so you can go through that. To make use of up-to-date food processing technologies. Now, gone are the days we are still using heat treatment, but now minimal processing methods have come. Heat treatment itself, now so many other methods are coming. For example, microwave as opposed to oven heating. A lot of peanut. Peanut is something all over India is relished. It's one of the more economical nuts, very nutritious. The traditional roasting was the sand roasting or pan roasting. Then you have the oven roasting. Now you have the microwave technology that is being used extensively for roasting. So all these are possible where the nutritional value of that particular food is maintained without getting destroyed. So that is so if we can optimize and choose a technology or choose a processing method which will prevent the losses, then obviously it's a great advantage for the manufacturer and for the consumer. That is what we want. Because the manufacturer wants to deliver a good product, but also wants to make a profit. The consumer wants safe food and tasty food. And of course, nutritious food, healthy. All these three we demand. So if these demands are to be met, obviously, we have to take care of how we are going to process that food. The next is to make use of new or more economical products which are available, which could be available. For example, certain varieties. Now, of course, we find, like, for example, millets. My entire research PhD was with millets. This was about 91 to 95 was my research on millets, okay. So at that time, when I went to my guide at IIT Madras and told her, this is, are you sure, Usha, you want to work on this? Nobody is working on it. So I said, no, ma'am, I'm very sure I want to work on this. Luckily, she being a microbiologist, she said, I have no knowledge about food science. She was so humble, Dr. T.S. Chandra. And then she said, if you're confident, you work. I will support you with the microbiology part. So that's how I went into it. So we find that that time, finger millet was very cheap. It was just 6 rupees a kilo. Now what is the cost? It's more than 60 rupees a kilo. And now of course many varieties are available. It's not that it should not become popular, but when things become popular, then the demand increases, the cost also increases. So as a food manufacturer, I have to take care of that. So can I look at some alternate sources? So instead of finger millet, can I use some other millet? So these are the questions which the innovator will have to think of. And of course, creating new markets. On the other side, you have the consumer. Consumer wants first and foremost convenience. I should just go to the market, as ma'am said, on the go. Okay? You pick up something, I should be able to straight away open it and eat it. Then health and wellness. Health and wellness is, especially after COVID, this has become the health consciousness of people has increased so much. We all demand that we want something which is healthy. Awareness. Now people are more aware, especially about the nutritional content of various components and also how these nutrients are having an impact on our health. We know that. So that is added functionality. We want food just not to provide the nutrients, we want it to do the other functions. Maintain health, promote health, prevent disease. So this also has become a demand from the consumer. We want variety, we want choice, and we want it customized. As mentioned earlier by ma'am, we say, Amma panna katrika. What my mother made, the baingan which my mother made, okay, the fish curry which my grandmother made. You have a nostalgia. You have an emotional attachment to those flavors, to those foods, and you want it customized to your taste. And in our country, we know, all people who have traveled and without traveling now with the internet, you know how much varied our cuisines are. Like somebody said, every 100 kilometers you travel within Tamil Nadu itself, you will have a different sambar. Sambar is such a staple in South India. So that changes. So that is the regional influence. Then the economy, the luxury or the niche market. There are a lot of people who can afford high-end foods, or they are willing to pay a lot of money for the foods which they think are very healthy. Sustainability is the key here, because we have only one planet, we have only one set of resources, and we all have to live. Not just live, but live happily. and retain customer loyalty. So if I tried the product and I find it's good, then I should be willing to continue with it. I'll do that. I'm a very smart consumer. Not meaning any consumer is very smart. They will think, am I getting the returns for the money I'm paying for that product? Is it worth every paisa that I'm spending on it? Both in terms of nutrition as well as health. So if we look at the stages, in any activity there is a vision and there is a mission. If you have a person or if you have somebody who only has vision and does not have the ability to execute that vision, it will fail. If you take up a mission without a vision, again that's going to end in failure. So the vision and mission go hand in hand. You should have the vision. You should be able to identify the goals which you want to achieve, and these goals should be transformed or translated into objectives which are achievable, which can be targeted and which can be achieved. So food product development is just this activity. There is a vision and there is a mission, and you'll move from one to the other, and in between also you will change things or you modify things, and then you finally get your objective. So essentially there are 6 steps to be considered. You have to identify your product and process based on the need, demand, and based on that fix your objectives and target. So is it for a toddler? Is it for a teenager? Is it for a nursing mother? Is it for a pregnant lady? Is it for an anemic person? So what is it? And you have to think of the innovative strategy which you want to apply. What are the possibilities? What are the strategies? You have to thoroughly analyze this, and this has to be science-based. You have to look at the literature. You have to look at the previous experience of people. What are they saying? Will this work? Is this equipment available for me if I want to manufacture this? Or there's nobody who's manufacturing, I have to import the equipment. So what will I do? So these things we need to look at. Developing the product prototype, this is the key thing. In all hackathons, this is what we are asking our students to do. Please make your prototype, present it to us. Or you come with the idea, and the next stage you come with the prototype. We'll give you some funding. So the product concept, the design specifications, how much should it weigh? I am making some fantastic bar, okay? A nutrient bar or whatever bar you want to call it, energy bar, protein bar. Then what size should it be? What serving should it be? How should I do the whole thing? So including the packaging design you have to think of. The process modifications, you have a basic recipe, you know the method for that. What are the steps in which you will modify it? The knowledge of the food system and technology. So I have so many people approaching me for consultancy. They have absolutely no idea. They've not done any cooking in their lives. They've probably watched their mothers. They want to start a food company. It's very difficult. I mean, that's what I said. The vision is there. They want to do something, but they don't know how to go about it. So they have to consult the concerned people, get the inputs from the scientific inputs for the concerned persons, professionals, and then take the first step. This will help them. Then the scientific product trials. It should be science-based. You just can't do a recipe once and then say, okay, this will work out. Absolutely, it will not work out. There's so much of optimization and standardization to be done. The sensory, I'll touch upon this because Dr. Nandini had wanted me to give some importance to the sensory profiling, so I'll touch on that. The packaging, storing, distribution, all of you know that. Evaluating the prototype. It's not enough if you successfully make the prototype. You have to evaluate it in terms of the consumer response and the food choice. Is it integrating the consumer need and the wants in the product development? Is it meeting that? You have to rethink, re-examine, and finalize. Then the whole process has to be managed. This whole product development process has to be, that's a different game altogether. So you have people in product management, designing in the product development process, establishing the key decision points. At every point, decision has to be made. You want, all of you have done product development, no, you have to do some 12, 15 trials. So at each trial, what is the decision you're making? I tell my students, okay, what is your learning from your first trial? What do you want to modify in the next step? Then you go for trial 2. Because you can't alter all variables simultaneously. Then you don't get the answer. What is it which is limiting? What is it which is holding back this product? So it is a systematic process. You can't, there is no shortcut to it. There is no shortcut to it. You have to do. That is why some of the traditional methods and some of the traditional equipment are so good for certain types of products. So if, for example, if you're making a payasam, you're making traditional, wherever these things are made, there are traditional equipment, kadai or urli or some kind of equipment in which the heat transmission or the heat exchange is so good that the product will not stick underneath. It will have an even heat distribution. So all the particles in that particular food particles will get the heat transfer is so good. So obviously your product is going to be very different. So the alloy which is used in making that food preparation, bronze, you've heard of bronze, Vengalam? Vengala Patram you've heard of? So this Vengalam is an alloy, I think, which is made up of 3 or 4 metals. It is so good that nothing will burn in it when you cook. Color change is very less for vegetables if you cook in that vessel. So what is it? I don't know the science. I don't know if anybody has done the science. I'm yet to come across anything. There's very little work on the equipments we use traditionally in our food preparation. So there is a lot of scope, and for modernizing that needs to be done. That's not yet done. Then you have the improving the process itself by evaluating the product development, the innovation metrics, and continuously you have to improve. Now, if we look at the process itself, this is the process development of the product strategy, the product design and process, scale up and commercialization, the market launch, and the post-launch evaluation. Because once you do the pilot scale and then you get a feedback from us, if you do a consumer survey or consumer testing and you get the feedback, still you may need to do some modifications, because when you scale up the equipment to a larger scale, say from some 50 kgs or 100 kgs to 1000 kgs, then obviously you're going to change so many things in your processing. Time, temperature may change, anything may change. You can't exactly mimic the same equipment when you scale up to a much larger level. So those kind of fine tuning will have to be done. So that needs care. Now if we look at I'm just giving a brief of each of these steps. Finalize the product type which needs to be developed, which means this has to be done in the test kitchen. The lab scale needs to be completed. Assess the viability of the project for the company. Decide on the product specification, its design, and finally the project report. What is it finally that you want to do with this product? You think it will really sell if you go for scale up. Then 2 interrelated activities happen here, the product ideas and product concepts. So here this involves gathering information, analyzing and evaluating it, the marketing potential, the financial aspects, the legal aspects, especially the regulators aspect. So if I'm using some additive, which is an approved additive, is it the correct amount? If I'm using a sauce and saying it is vegan, can I say it's vegan? Okay, how will you prove it is not from an animal source? So you have to provide the scientific evidence. The committee there is not going to accept. Traditional knowledge may be there. You may know that it's coming from a lichen or some moss or something like that, but how will you prove it to the scientific panel? So the environmental and social dimensions are equally important, because when we again relook at some of these steps, we'll find that these 2 are very important for sustainability reasons. You can't have a product, which is so exclusive and which is, bringing out this product by exploiting some group of people. That will never work out. Okay. So if your special variety of rice is being produced by a farmer, you have to make sure that farmer is getting adequate returns. And whoever is working in his farm is being paid well. Otherwise, what is the point? Okay. So those dimensions also have to be given. So you have the product strategies, new ethnic concepts. Here is where all our traditional foods will come into play. Enriching food with functional ingredients, fortification, prepared meals. If you can, you have the prepared meals, fresh meals are available. Can such a thing be provided? Otherwise, even prepared meals, can you give it fresh? Because if you can give fresh, nothing like that. And new techniques to improve the sensory qualities and the nutrient potential in terms of minimal processing, heat treatment, freeze drying. You need not freeze dry the whole thing, but the functional component you can freeze dry and you can add. So these are possibilities. Now if we look at the design and process, then some decisions related to all this needs to be made, and for this you need many factors need to be evaluated. So product, its packaging, production, distribution, market, financial predictions. Whether I will break even at the end of 1 year, 2 years, what will happen? And the level of risk. For any entrepreneur, startup, that is the thing. What is the level of risk? So you have to, the level of risk should be such that finally you're able to get a payoff from that. And estimated profits you should be able to do, and probability of success you should be able to do. And here is where if you're able to pitch your product and process in such a way, then you will have the venture capitalists who may be willing to give you some support and funding. Now the government is going in a big way to give the funding so you can compete. Scale up and commercialization is a very, very important step, because it's not enough if it stops with the kitchen, test kitchen, it has to move to the next level. So the feasibility of production and distribution, viability of the market strategy, the finance, and the predicted returns on the investment. So how much should I price per packet? My one unit, one chocolate or one bar is 100 grams or 25 grams or 30 grams. Then how much should I price it? And if it comes in a pack, if I'm selling retail, how much will I sell? If I'm selling in bulk, how much will I sell? Because the retailer is going to demand some cut, right? So you have to think of all that. All those little things will have to be. And some of the important activities are market study, market testing. HACCP control is so important. This you need a food auditor who will come and check your unit and say everything is fine or make some modifications. The documentation is very important when you have a unit like that. And the process engineering with respect to the plant and its production. And of course the finance. So always the pilot scale production is necessary to optimize the process. And you cannot move to the large scale without this, especially if you need to make equipment modifications, because the large scale equipment will be very different. It will not exactly mimic the same equipment. So will it still work out? Will you still get your production rate per hour? How many units will you be able to produce? So many biscuits or so many bottles or whatever it is. You should be able to get that, and it should give you the same quality. So sensory evaluation is such an important part of food. Where anywhere there is a food activity, ultimately the consumer is the king. If I'm eating food today, I have to say it's, as ma'am said, your manas, what your heart tells you. Your mind tells you, okay, this looks good, it's appealing, but you have to eat it. When you eat it, you should feel happy. Otherwise, the consumer is going to reject the product. So the sensory evaluation is very fundamental to this whole process of food product development, and all of them, these techniques, use human assessors as measuring instruments. So the emotion goes with it. Emotion is such an important part, because all tastes are acquired by the cultural setting, ethnic setting in which we are brought up. Now all Indians like spicy food, it's a known thing. Asians, most Asians, Westerners don't like it. They say, hoo-ha, no. But they are also adapting. If you give them spices at a lower level, lower dosage, they love our food. So same thing holds good. So because the human is the measuring instrument, it helps us to understand how the product characteristics are perceived by that human. No other instrument can replicate this. No other instrument can replicate this. That is why sensory evaluation is such a fundamental and important thing. Today we have the electronic nose, you have the electronic tongue. All this is available, but they can never replace the human assessment. Because ultimately the human is complex, and as a result is evolving. You're not, 10 years ago I was a different individual, I respond differently. Now I'm much older, I like less spicy food. I find that certain type of foods, my food, except for few things which have not changed, some things have changed, preferences have changed. So this will happen. So human evaluator, when he or she serves as an instrument, it's quite variable over time. You can easily do this experiment. You take a batch of your students, make the product, give it today, then you give it to them at a later time. It will not match exactly. Then very variable among themselves, and very prone to bias. This is very common, because food and taste is highly subjective. So certain things you dislike, they'll come and tell you, no ma'am, I don't want to taste this. Not a veg, non-veg, even certain foods, they'll say, no, this I don't like, I don't eat this, I'm not used to eating these foods. So this can be a bias, and this can be minimized by using a number of techniques. So you can train the evaluators to be more sensitive, to be more accurate. In fact, the whole world can be divided into two groups of people, tasters and non-tasters. How sensitive your tongue is. It's a genetic trait. It's a genetic trait. So some people are very sensitive. If I give them something and I say, find out what is the spice I've added, they'll find out. This has omam, that is ajwain, or this has jeera or cumin, they can find out, even though the taste may be slightly similar. Okay, so these distinctions and sensitivity can be enhanced. And measurements can be repeated and replicated. This is very important. You have to repeat. You must have at least 25 to 30 people in your panel, and you have to repeat this 3-4 times so that you're sure that you're getting the same results for the same product. Larger number of evaluators, and when you have an untrained panel, the number should be larger. When you have a trained panel, you can even have 10 people and still get a very good results. And environmental conditions during the evaluation should be controlled. No noise, adequate lighting, proper temperature. If I give you ice cream which is not cold, obviously the panelist will not be happy with it. So these kind of things. So all this is defined, and there are standard methods for it. Sensory evaluation is a field of study in which human perception of the characteristics through our 5 senses. So a sensory property is a characteristic of an object or a substance or experience which is perceived by sight, smell, taste, touch and hearing. They help us to evaluate and identify or judge the quality and nature of things around that. So in the context of food, it is the appeal in terms of the color, shape, texture, flavor, aroma, sound, all these things we gauge or we assess. So what does this do? It provides a valid and reliable information about the perceived sensory properties, and this information is important for R&D, for production, for quality control, marketing. Because unless finally your product has to be purchased by the consumer. So unless the consumer says, yes, this product is good, and if many consumers say they like it, obviously it gives you a thumbs up sign to move forward and to go for production. It's a pillar which upholds the crucial process from the conception stage of the idea to the consumer satisfaction. It's a multidimensional approach because you're using multiple type of inputs and things to get the outcome. So sensory dimensions of the food, feedback about its particular attributes, preferences, acceptability, so you can fine tune. Because when we talk about taste or any sense which we have, any of the senses which we perceive, there is first the recognition. You're able to recognize this is a sound, this is sweet, this is salt, that's first part. Second part is you're able to gauge the intensity. This is less sweet, this is more sweet, less salt, is very bitter. You say that, I just can't put it in my mouth. So this helps, this feedback helps. So if we look at the food industry, consumer satisfaction, as I said, reigns supreme. And therefore understanding the preferences which drive the decision making and choice of the consumer is very important. And it's a quality control tool because you can detect the deviations and inconsistencies in the product attributes. You can standardize across the batches because in commercial production, batch variation should not be there, or at least should be very minimal. It will ensure product success and competitive edge over your other people, rivals in the business. And it's the small discrepancies in flavor profile, what we call aftertaste. You taste something and then there is an aftertaste, so you don't want that. Texture nuances. You want a wafer to be crisp. You want the samosa to be crisp outside and you want the filling to be soft inside. Cream biscuit. You want the outside to be crisp, but you want the inside to be soft and creamy. So how can this be achieved, and how can such a product be stored? So these are the questions which the technologist has to find solutions. So these nuances are possible only through such testing, and the visual aesthetics, that is so important. Looking at something and feeling, oh, this is good, I should try it. So you go to the next step. And corrective action. So consumer choice being interpreted or helped by sensory evaluation, it transcends the laboratory space to the realm of marketing and engagement with the consumer. Eventually, you will have to do some consumer testing, but unless you do the sensory evaluation, you cannot move to that space. So the methods used, very briefly, I'll just touch upon the methods. So this is the sensory experience, all the 5 senses, which we look at, and we use different types of scale, okay, to analyze the product. So you have the three main types of tests. You have the discriminatory test, you have the descriptive test, and the hedonic test. So discriminatory test, you have three main types. You have what is called the triangle test, the duo trio test, and the ranking test. As the picture indicates, you can see there. In the first case, that is the triangle test, you have two of these samples which are similar and one which is deviant. So your panelist has to find out which two are similar. That is the triangle test. The duo trio test, what you do is you have a reference sample, you tell them this is the reference sample, and you present two more samples and you say which is similar to the reference. So for example, if you're trying that bar which I was talking about, yeah, thank you. Okay. So if you're so in the second one, so you have a standard commercial product and you have your product and you can compare. Okay. So that is your duo trio test, and the ranking test, all of you know, you just arrange it in order of either preference or a particular taste. Okay, less intense, more intense, you can ask them to rank it. Then you have the descriptive test in which you should know your product. Idli has this particular type of color, shape, texture, etc. So you have to describe in detail what that is, and they will be able to describe it. This is usually done only by trained panelists. So trained panelists do the descriptive tests, and they have detailed description of the product. Less soft, more soft. So you have terms like sweetness, saltiness, umami, astringency, firmness, flakiness, juiciness. Odor can be floral, fruity, spicy, fishy, metallic. So these kind of terms are used and they are able to find out. So this is how the tests are done. And you can arrive at their special statistical methods, all kinds of things are there for you to finally arrive at your acceptability of the product. And if it's lacking either in texture or color or whatever, you need to take the corrective action. So when we come to the final part, as I said, there is a vision and mission, but we should not forget the values. The values should not be forgotten because the people who are involved in this whole process are important. Whether you're sourcing the material from the farmer, the processor, even your typist is important. So unless everybody works together, we are not going to achieve our goal. So maintaining our values, the ethics is very, very important. So here you have to pay importance to the cultural and regional significance of whether it's your product or your consumer. Both you have to pay attention. And if you're introducing a completely, for example, from the north, you're bringing something and expecting the people here to accept it, especially in rural communities who are not exposed to such things, you have to do some groundwork, you have to sensitize them. Same way if you're taking one product. Now if you take idli and dosa, it's become pan-global. Everybody knows what is idli and dosa. In fact, when I went to Denmark for a conference, they said, ma'am, you come and set up one dosa restaurant here, you will become a millionaire in 1 year. It's so popular. Okay? So that's how it is. So sustainability and ethical considerations. When I talked about values, these are the things. You have to, recognize the cultural and regional significance of your consumer. If you don't pay attention to that, you're going to have a problem. So that is why many of the breakfast cereals of some companies failed here, because we are not used to eating breakfast like the Westerners. Each region in our country has specific breakfast or set of breakfasts. So that was not popular except among a very small group. All your muesli and other things. That's what, that's the finding. You'll find the data available, studies are there. Sustainability, ethical considerations, I don't have to repeat. You understand what that means, but that is very fundamental. So in the Indian context, regional variations, especially with respect to Ayurvedic food, ma'am spoke about the location and the season. That's important. Both are important, and the diverse ethnicities and culture. Now, sensory preferences are acquired. Okay, when you were a child, everything was within the family, especially if you were not in the city. If you're in the city, you're exposed to eating from outside. Then you also have learned responses. You travel, then you taste other foods. Now Chinese foods are available here, so you get to taste them. They're not truly Chinese, but okay. And widely different global foods. Now you have Korean restaurants here. What other do we have? Korean, Japanese restaurant you have here in Chennai. Russian you have. So these all different, and different, even among the Indians, you have specific. Okay, North, South, and Karnataka, Kannada, Goan, all those kind of things. And you have special dietary foods, which includes the Ayurveda foods. This will be unique and challenging. If we are able to introduce this, it will be really good. But it's also challenging because, as ma'am said, there is a particular process to be followed. The combination, even millets, now you have combination of millets. Ayurveda says you cannot mix all millets. They're very clear. You cannot mix all the millets. Only certain types of millets need to be mixed, and it has to be processed in a particular way. You can't roast all of them and eat all of them. You can't ferment all of them. So each millet has its own way of consumption, traditional process. So we need to know that and we need to understand that. So in summary, sensory evaluation is the cornerstone of the food industry. It encompasses the ethos of innovation, quality, and consumer centricity, and it's basic or the fundamental to all food product development activity. So if we want success, we have to work together. Okay? It's not enough if only I work in my lab, keep quiet. No. Especially Ayurveda foods, the synergy is important. If we want to synergize, we have to work together. Only then. These are my students who've helped me, all my PhD students, with whom I've done a lot of product development, we've patented, etc. So I'm very thankful to them. Okay, innumerable sessions of modifying and the product, etc. Thank you for your patient hearing. Happy to answer questions, if you'll allow questions.
We can have the question and answer session once we break for lunch. I'm extremely sorry we're running out of time. I would invite...
One-to-one you can meet.
Yeah, you can meet ma'am and other speakers one-to-one during your lunch session and can have a great chat with them. I invite Dr. G. Nandini Devi, Director CTTM, to felicitate Professor Dr. Usha Antony with a memento.